All right, I can craft more of those later. Let me pause this right now. Currents, thank you very much for the resub. Happy 13, Asmon. Thanks for all the joy you and McConnell bring. You and McCool bring. It's crazy to see how much you've grown in the past year, unlike your hairline. Well, my hairline has grown. It's grown inversely with my head. And that's the issue. It's like negative growth. Okay, this is it. Classic WoW max graphics versus classic settings option. Classic WoW demo leaks.
Guys, it's Tibbs, and before I get started, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you guys who checked out my video yesterday. That was by far my most well-received video, I think, of all time. It got a crazy amount of views in the first 24 hours, and a special shout out to Asmongold who featured it on his stream yesterday. Thank you so much, Zach. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
But today, guys, we got some more screenshots. A lot more screenshots, actually. I won't be able to go through all of them because you guys literally sent me hundreds and hundreds of screenshots. Now, these screenshots in particular are very interesting because they are a direct comparison between max graphics in classic World of Warcraft and the graphics that are utilized by toggling the classic button in the interface settings. So in case you missed it yesterday, guys, Blizzard will not be using any new models for classic World of Warcraft. However, they did add a couple of extra slider options for cranking up your graphics even higher than you could back in vanilla, although they have retained a classic mode, a classic button that allows you to revert your graphics down to original vanilla World of Warcraft levels. It should be. So that's what we're looking at today, guys, starting with this particular screenshot. Obviously, this is Elwynn Forest. So as you can see, there's a ton of foliage everywhere. The resolution seems to be pretty crisp. But if we go to the next picture, you can see the difference in classic mode.
That's the way it's supposed to look.
Obviously, there is a huge difference, guys. These look like two totally different games. I'm going to go back real quick to the high resolution. Yep, cranked up all the way, max graphics right here. A lot more foliage, a lot more shadows. And I want you guys to pay attention in particular to the tree in the back. The tree in the dead center all the way in the back. Look what happens when I go to classic graphics. Boom.
It just looks completely different.
It's almost like it's taken at a completely different time of day. Yeah. But I was told that these were taken at the exact same time, just with the settings cranked down to classic. It seems like the ultra high shadow setting in particular is very, very effective and creates a completely different look to the game. It seems like the shadows option in particular plays a big role as to how the game looks, as well as the foliage options.
I guess it does.
I mean, look at the ground clutter. It looks like a completely different game, honestly.
I'm going to pause this right now. Decent D3CENT. You have said Tips is a moron. Tips sucks. Tips is bad. Why is Tips bad? Like, because you're spamming this negativity. What is it? What is it about? What is it about him that's making you spam? What do you say? Just a second. He's clueless. Well, that's not... Like, so what is wrong about this video? What is he clueless about in this video? Because you said that he's clueless. What is it specifically? Because, I mean... I'm just curious.
Yeah, we'll wait. We'll wait for you to answer.
We'll wait. Let's see what he's got to say. But it just seems like there's people like this that have an agenda.
He said he's clueless about vanilla in general.
What does this have to do with the video? Go back and watch his interview with OG. Well... Like, this is, like, more gatekeeping again. Like, so Tips doesn't know as much about vanilla as Esfon does, or maybe somebody else that plays a lot more. So, like, how does that hurt this video? Like, what specifically about this video is that hurting? Like, how much, like, who is the gatekeeper for how much somebody has to know? Do you have to take a test before you create classic WoW content? Like, obviously he's creating content that's making the game better. I don't understand why you're going to say a bunch of bad stuff. It just doesn't make any sense.
And it gives Elwynn Forest a completely different vibe. You guys know me, I'm no changes. I prefer the old way to play the game. And I'm actually curious, which graphical settings will you guys play on in classic WoW? Will you crank it up all the way to the max settings? Or will you guys choose the classic options Let me know in the comment section below. I think it's very interesting. I want to see your guys' thoughts on that. Now, moving on, we have this shot in the Barrens. And again, on ultra-high settings. As you can see, the foliage is out of control.
Thank you,
To
Rob.
be honest, it doesn't look very barren if you ask me.
Yeah, it's not barren at all.
But that is how it looks like currently with the settings cranked all the way up. But in classic mode, it looks very, very different. As you guys can see, much more barren, much less foliage. Overall, the resolution, the textures in the background seem to be much, much lower too. But yeah, day and night. Day and night. Like,
yeah,
it
does look
a
little bit different.
Now, here's a really interesting shot of STV, and the reason why it's so interesting is because of the water. Now, guys, personally, I was never a huge fan of the post-cataclysm water update.
What?
I didn't really like it at all. It kind of looks like liquid metal. That's how someone described it on stream today, liquid metal. And I'm inclined to agree. It doesn't really fit the overall motif of the vanilla zones in particular.
What the hell is this?
On classic mode, which you guys can see right here, I think it looks a lot more fitting. I think the water textures in vanilla, albeit they're a lot less, high resolution.
That's the way it's supposed to look.
I do think they match the overall aesthetic and the themes of the zones a little bit more. So I do personally prefer the old water textures, and that is what I'll be playing on personally. But again, if you guys are interested in the max resolution, the highest graphic.
Okay.
So generally, like, I think the graphics don't matter. Like, okay, there's more shadows, there's fucking more foliage, whatever. Like, it does matter in some cases, like with bushes. But for water, it really, really does matter. Because in the old graphics, you could hide under the water from people. But in the new graphics, you cannot do that because you can see right through the water. Now, for World PvP, I think that has a pretty... I don't want to say huge, but it does have some effect on gameplay.
I think that you're completely right, actually. Because like, if you look at the shadows, like, people stand out a lot more in the old graphics than the new one. That's what's really odd to me about it. Is it like the newer graphics make it a lot easier to blend in with your surroundings. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Two completely different times of day. I've got to say, I'm not a big fan of the ultra-high graphics either. I think they darken things a little bit too much. They certainly weren't available in Classic either, and in some zones, they really don't match. Albeit in some other zones, they do enhance them a little bit more, and we'll get to that in just a little bit, but let's move through these pretty fast. Next up, we have the screenshot in Darkshore. As you can see, a lot of foliage. This is on max settings. This is how it looks like in Classic mode. I'm going to go back one more time. Max settings, Classic mode, max settings, Classic mode, max settings, Classic mode. And I think this is one of the examples where the shadows actually do help a little bit. As you can see in the max settings, the forest definitely does look a little bit darker, a little bit more eerie, as you would expect Darkshore to look like. Here it's a little bit too bright, and obviously the foliage is very much lacking. In this particular case, I would prefer the ultra settings, but because I'm not going to be toggling my graphics up and down while I'm playing, I will still pick the lower settings, but it's just a very interesting observation. In some zones, it does look better with the higher shadows, at least in my opinion. Next up, we have another shot of Elwynn Forest, as you guys can see here.
Camp.
This is obviously on max settings. You can take a look at the water, the higher resolutions, the shadows, the foliage. And this is on the classic settings. And I think these two screenshots in particular really showcase the difference of the classic mode and the max settings mode. Again, I'm going to go back to max settings right here. Classic graphics right here. Max setting, classic. Max settings, classic. Two totally different games. I mean, the water, the foliage difference, the shadows. I mean, look at the trees in the back. Look how different, how dark they look with the shadows enabled, and how much brighter they look without the shadows enabled. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Like, really crazy. So crazy, in fact, that this person has compiled a bunch of screenshots that only show the difference of the shadow settings, meaning that these graphics are cranked up all the way on max resolution, max settings, but the only change he made was the dialing down of the shadows. And it looks a little bit something like this. As you can obviously see, this is with shadows enabled. This is with shadows disabled.
That's how it's supposed to look, though.
Absolute world of difference, guys.
Like the shadows, that creates the entire ambience of the game.
It looks like two totally different zones, two totally different times of day. Elwynn Forest, I think, looks a lot better with the shadows disabled than enabled. Obviously, the colors just change so much. The atmosphere changes so much. I mean, two totally different zones. Now, here's one of the crossroads, and I think the reason why this one in particular is so interesting, because it exposes the differences between the old shadow technology and the new shadow technology. As you can see here, these are the new ultra high Legion shadows, and these are the vanilla shadows. And if you look at this right now directly, you can obviously see just how different these two shadow systems are. Again, makes the world look totally different in my opinion.
Yeah.
The trees get a lot brighter in the vanilla version, but the shadows themselves kind of extend a little bit far out because I think they were painted on the ground back in the day. So yeah, two totally different
They were painted
scenes,
on the ground?
two totally different styles. Looking forward to hear which one you guys prefer. Here's one of Feralas with shadows on, shadows off. Shadows on,
it's completely different.
Shadows off. Again, an absolute world of difference. It goes from being this
I never really noticed how big of a shadows, how big of a
super
part the shadows
dark,
play.
dreary, almost melancholy forest. And sometimes, hey, I prefer that. I think it works a lot better in Feralas with the shadows on than with the shadows off. But again, each zone is a little bit different. That's why I'm showing you guys all these different screenshots so you guys can make a decision checking out each of the different zones on your own. Here's another big contrast in Durotar. As you can see, these are with shadows on. These are with shadows off. Shadows on, shadows off. Shadows on, shadows off. Wow. Two totally different looks. Again, I mean, the red really comes out a lot more when the shadows are off, but with the shadows on, it looks obviously a lot more realistic. Personally, I prefer the classic mode shadows. I think it brings out the color. It's a lot more rich.
It's not real.
And it really gives the zone more identity and personality than with the shadows on. But I can understand why people prefer the former rather than the latter. At the end of the day, play what you want. But yeah, some interesting screenshots that I think a lot of you guys would want to see. The differences between the max settings mode in Classic WoW and the classic setting modes in Classic WoW. I want to know, how are you guys going to play the game? Do you guys prefer the old water, the old
play it
shadows,
on classic,
or the newer ultra high settings? Whatever you guys want to play, however you guys are going to play, please let me know in the comments. I'm very excited to hear your guys' opinions. As far as screenshot videos go, this will probably be my last one until the Classic WoW demo. But I thought it'd be really interesting for you guys to see. Again, a graphical comparison between the classic settings and the ultra high settings. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, sub it up and stick around because we got more coming. And a very special shout out to all my friends on Patreon. Thank you guys for all of your support. You guys make videos like these possible. If you want to join Patreon yourself, I've left the link in the description for you. And for more Classic WoW content, news, and updates, you can check me out live on Twitch at twitch.tv/tipsoutbaby. But aside from that, have a wonderful day, fellas. See you guys on Twitch. And as always, tips out, baby.
So what'd you think, dude?
I think people are being unnecessary cunts to tips in chat.